How to jump is the most asked question in RC racing. In theory, it's simple. Approach the takeoff straight, control it with your throttle, and hit the landing. Yet we all do this sometimes. Oh, sorry, that's the next video in this series. I mean this. Oh God. We all know what the car should do, and it takes some practice, but it's easier than you think. So in this video, I want to show you how. Let's first have a look at the run-up and how to approach the jump. The most important thing is to get a straight line completely perpendicular to the face of the jump. If that means taking a slightly longer line than the ideal line to achieve this, then that's okay. As you build skill and becomes more confident and consistent, you will be able to take a tighter and tighter line and turn more and more into the up ramp of the jump. The second thing is to actually use the throttle right. When approaching the jump, you should have a little bit of speed and not go too slow. And what I want you to do is to slowly apply the throttle all the way to the takeoff, instead of going very slow and then punching the throttle like that. As you can see, both techniques work, but the problem with the punching technique is that it's very hard to do it consistent every time, and it often shoots the car too long, or worst case scenario, it spins and it shoots you off the track. And this is a very good way to make this sport a lot more expensive and also make some enemies on the track, since no one likes a car heading the wrong way in the wrong lane. So I would suggest going with a slow, consistent acceleration up to the up ramp of the jump. This more consistent throttle technique makes it a lot easier to do the same thing consistently over and over. And it also makes the car fly in a much better and more consistent way in the air. There is a time and place for the punch technique, and we'll get to that later in this video. To get a nice arc, even without doing anything with the throttle or brake in the air, you should let off the throttle in about this position where the car is now. It depends a little bit on the type of jump, but if you let off just before or just when you take off, the car will fly in a nice arc. So already at the takeoff, much is decided on how the car is flying through the air. If you find the car is flying nose down like this, then you probably let go of the throttle too early. But if you instead find your car flying nose high like this, then you had too much throttle and didn't let go of the throttle soon enough. So next is how to control the car when it's actually in the air. If you find the car is flying like this with the front wheels up, you can apply brake in the air and the car will start tilting forward. If you instead see the front of the car dipping down, you should apply full throttle. Nose down is for me the preferred way to fly in almost all situations, because one, it's easier to save with the throttle, and two, most down ramps are in a slight downwards angle, and I want to be on the throttle as soon as I can after landing. So if I have the the front wheel slightly down, I can apply throttle just before landing and still not over-rotate backwards. Comparing that to when the car is facing the front wheels up in the air, you have to be much quicker with your reactions to brake to start rotating forward and get those front tires down again. So how do you catch the landing, and how do you save if you overshoot or if you don't clear the jump? The first tip when it comes to this is to look at other drivers, or even better, follow a driver off the takeoff. You have to pick what driver carefully though. If the driver is too experienced and too fast, he will probably go into the takeoff way faster and actually coast the final bit to clear the jump. So if you, as a beginner, go into the takeoff with the same amount of speed, you will probably overshoot the landing. So pick a confident driver that is consistent and is one step above you in skill level. And try to look how they apply the throttle and how fast they go. And if possible, follow them over the jump the first time. It also depends on the jump itself. If it's, for example, a tabletop, then you can just work yourself up to it. If it is a double or a step up, like this for example, you need to approach it a little bit different. Because then I would look at how the takeoff look. If it's a very mellow takeoff, I would try to overshoot it the first time because the car is not going very high and there's really no damage done by overshooting it. If, however, the transition is very steep, you need to weigh the consequences of going short versus going long. Because going long on a very steep takeoff will be a very harsh landing for the car and possibly an expensive endeavor. But going short can be the same. So in that case, it depends on the jump itself, and it's even more important to look at what the other drivers do. In this case, when there's a small step up, if this transition was very steep, I would still prefer to go short, almost like a table. But in this case, the transition is mellow, so I would prefer having a little bit too much speed the first time I hit it. So let's say you were overshooting a big jump. What can you do? Well, the best thing to do if the car is flying in the preferred angle with the nose slightly down is to, right before you land, apply a healthy amount of throttle. And why is that? Because of how the anti-squat and stuff works on these cars, that will stiffen up the car so it doesn't go through the suspension as harshly. On the other hand, if you're nose up, you will have to do your best to get the car level and then try to get it to land on all four wheels at the same time. That will remove the most amount of risk of damaging the car. The car can take quite a big hit if it lands all four wheels and smack the chassis in the ground. But if it lands very rear heavy or very front heavy, it's a lot higher risk of damaging the chassis plate of the car. Panic revving, meaning keeping the throttle full on, is also usually the best bet if you come up short on a jump. But what if the car is starting to lean left or right? Well, that's a very advanced skill, so I won't go very deep about it in this video. I have a video of that coming. But just explaining it very quickly, whatever way your car is leaning, you want to turn down towards the ground. that will straighten out the car. But a much easier way to control a car that starts leaning side to side in the air is actually to hit the throttle full on. This will usually straighten out the car, and in most situations that's enough. Remember earlier when I talked about the punching technique and that there's a time and place for it? Well, here's such place on the track. Landing from this table, you have this sweeper, and then you have a jump over the track. Most beginners can't carry enough speed around this sweeper to clear the whole track. So in this case, it's better to go slow and to actually punch the throttle once you're in this transition. This jump also has a couple of other things going for it for work with the punching technique. And that is that it's a single jump, so there's no landing to catch. And the other thing is that the landing is super wide. So even if the car spins a little bit and shoots a little bit right or left, it's completely fine. You will not miss the landing. When you're using what I call the punch technique, there's one thing to keep in mind though. Try to keep the actual punch as a more controlled, slower punch than just a super quick blip on the throttle. Again, both methods can be used, but a slower punch, it's much more controllable for the simple reason that a quick tap will almost always be full throttle. If you do a slow press, you have more control over the end point of that throttle input. Make it a habit to back out of any jump when your approach is wrong. I see so many beginners just punch it no matter what angle they are approaching the jump from. But please, if you're not straight towards the jump, just back it down, roll the jump. It's not the end of the world. And by doing that, you will get a lot more laps without crashing, and you will learn a lot faster. Finally, some pointers. For a steep jump like this, or like this, I basically always hit the brake right when I get airborne. But for a small, mellow takeoff like this, or this, I try to release the throttle at the right point in the transition instead. But like everything, this is a case-to-case scenario, and as your skill progresses, you will learn to react super fast to whatever the car is doing. This video was all about jumping as a beginner, but if you want more advanced tips, try my video about jumping faster. Or if you want to learn how to whip and control the air side to side in the air, stay tuned to the channel. I have something super cool coming for that. See you in the next one.